Cool.
Um,
I love it.
yeah,
So
I know.
maybe we can go into some of the external factors that you're seeing for end of
Okay.
July and into August.
Yeah. So this is a big one happening right now. There's well, you have in the sign of Taurus, you have Rahu, the north node of the moon transiting Taurus. You also have Uranus transiting Taurus. So you've got an outer planet with a node. Those are two planets of consciousness. And both of those mean new things, new experiences, innovative things that are completely, they come from the ether. The ideas come from the ether. They're never been heard of before. All right. Taurus is the sign of money, exchange, value, what we value, and how we get our needs met, basically, food and drink and things like that. That's what Taurus means. And then you have Mars there right now. Okay. So Mars with Rahu can be violent. And I'm just going to say it is a very violent combination. It's in an earth sign. Usually when you get those together, there's some concrete events that are violent. That's going to happen, that exact conjunction. It's going to be around 18 degrees of Taurus when you have Uranus, Pluto, or Uranus, Rahu, and Mars, that's August 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So, and interestingly enough, when you look at the chart of a ruler of a nation, you can make predictions based on that person's chart. And that conjunction in Taurus, I'm just going to bring it up here because I had it, will be exactly opposite Joe Biden's Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a very tight conjunction, but it'll be opposite his sun, his Mars, and Venus. But the big one is Mercury. And this just usually means that we're unfortunately getting used to hearing about violence a lot in this country, but that's going to be a big deal. That August 1st, couple days before, couple days after.
And I think this last week we saw the assassination of the Prime Minister of Japan.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I honestly don't even follow the news. This is just second knowledge.
Yeah, that was a huge deal. Yeah. That just basically, even without the Joe Biden's chart, the conjunction of Mars, Rahu together in the sign of Taurus indicates violence. And that probably will last until Mars moves out into Gemini.
Yes, because in the Vedic system, a conjunction is just that planet going into the sign is considered to be conjunct.
Right. In the same sign. Yeah.
Exactly.
Funny too is that this conjunction of Uranus and Rahu in the sign of Taurus, usually that means new money systems or new systems of exchange, new value placed on certain things.
Yeah.
Something else becomes value, brand new out of the blue. So I also do see that happening as well before this whole time that Rahu transits through Taurus.
And I wanted to actually ask you about that because I had been hearing about these new like virtual properties that people are buying.
I kind of heard about that.
I don't know much about it, but it's basically like an offshoot of cryptocurrency is like crypto property. And these are just another means to invest. Which I thought was really interesting. I don't know if that idea has legs, but if it ever does, I would think it's when Mars comes into Taurus with Rahu because
Oh yeah.
you know,
Okay,
like
yeah. Is that in the metaverse or
maybe, yeah, it's like a virtual. I don't know anything about it, but I thought people had mentioned it. I said, oh, well, this, because, you know, many people I know who were trying to buy properties at this time were not finding them because
yeah,
it was
but
very scarcity because Rahu was there in Taurus, you know, but as Mars comes in, that kind of proposition kind of changes a bit because, you know, Mars is property, it's land. And
yeah. It's
so
land that anything that comes from the earth or
but because Rahu is there, it's like you said, these are foreign concepts. These are kind of coming out of nowhere.
right. They're totally new and brand new, especially with that conjunction of Uranus. That's what it always brings.
And the conjunction of Uranus, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention that was one thing that came to my head.
Yeah. But so the other thing I wanted to say was that another way to read mundane charts, of course, you can use the chart or the the birth chart of the United States or any country. And I actually do not use that, but I do think it works. I'll say that, but I don't use that. I use the Lunar New Year for the capital of the country. And so, and that's the Lunar New Year is the Chinese New Year. And you can see a lot going on through there. Now, in the chart of the United States for 2022, there's a big pileup in the third house. The ascendant is Scorpio, and it has K2 in the ascendant. Okay. And K2 in the ascendant, K2 is a planet of feeling safe. Okay. Being in the castle, being safe, you know, hunkering down. It's also very much, it's kind of like a police state. You know, it's you can't do, you're only allowed to do certain things.
Controlled.
Right. Very controlled. It's a planet of control and critical. It's a very critical planet. So just by that alone, I do think there will be probably another type of lockdown or, you know, limiting of things in the country in general, limiting of freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have that big pileup of Mercury, Venus, and Mars in the third in Capricorn, conjoin the third cusp. That's traveling. Okay. We already saw, just the other day, an Amtrak train derailed, you know, the whole thing flopped over on its side. And then there's a lot of problems traveling right now. There's a shortage of pilots, you know, they're canceling flights left and right.
Yeah, I'm complaints about airports being chaotic.
Yeah. So, and that will be everywhere in a sense because Mercury is with Mars and Venus and Pluto, if you want to add that in there too. So, so that's also got some, there's a lot of problems around that. There's also, that's communication, you know, the media, social media. There's going to be some issues around getting in the information. The information is controlled. There's problems with certain platforms in that area. So, yeah. Now, every time there is a Lunar New Year, it's around the end of or around January and the beginning of February. That's just how it works. Because that falls in Aquarius, these last couple of years, that Lunar New Year, the last 2 years, has been conjoined Saturn, because Saturn's going through Aquarius right now. So that just shows, generally speaking, that's putting a damper on things. That's putting
A lockdown.
limits on things, delays, limits, a feeling of, oh no, just loss, fear, loss. Yeah. And so that'll happen one more time, which will be next year. So for 2023. And then, well, let me just make sure. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
It was, oops, it is, okay. So Saturn moves out of Aquarius on so around March 10th. So yeah, it'll be one more year of this.
Wow.
This feeling of kind of doom in a way. And then it'll move out, and then we'll have the Lunar New Year's without Saturn there.
Is that because the Lunar New Year sets the emotional tone for that year?
It's just it heralds the beginning of the year. It's the last new moon before it enters tropical Pisces. Okay. So it's just the way they measure, the old way of measuring years. They used to do, it was on a lunar calendar.
Yeah.
And because the moon revolves or orbits the Earth, so the moon is very much a planet of the Earth, what's happening on the Earth. And so the moon is like a radio signal that absorbs all of what's happening with the other planets and the sun, and then projects it onto Earth. So it's like the mind of the Earth, and it's very, it has to do in natal astrology, it has to do with our mind and our senses. It rules the face, where we have all our senses. It's exalted in Taurus, the Earth sign of getting what we need on Earth. So very much when you add the solar and lunar together, you're really seeing the whole picture. There are some astrologers who will look at charts of what they call Sankrantis or ingresses, and especially when the sun ingresses into Aries. That's the beginning of the year, the spring equinox. But this one actually I find is much more accurate. So yeah, and we're already seeing the results of that.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So but in the fourth house of that year of Yamakoti, or not Yamakoti, but of the Lunar New Year for USA, you have the Sun, Moon, and Saturn there. And so that's real estate, that's real estate that shows me that there will be a devaluing of real estate. It's already happening. The peak of the real estate boom is over.
Yep.
And so there will be a devaluing of that, but they're just overall, there's a general malaise and unhappiness and of the country in general, so because it's in the fourth house, Saturn is getting starved. The sun and moon is getting starved in the fourth house. I
feel like it's felt as a devaluing of the pleasure we receive from the physical, to me.
Yeah, that's very true. Mm-hmm.
From an inner perspective, like you think you get all this pleasure from these material things, and that's just not true anymore. It's just not.
No.
It's not holding up.
No, I think we've reached the end of that cycle of materiality for, a long time. I don't know exactly how long. it was coming, you had a lot of people, we had so many things available so easily, like food, and that we overextended ourselves, to a certain point.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this too in the people around me, like really thinking about, going through the motions, maybe even going to a mall or like shopping online or doing these things that they used to do that used to bring them pleasure, and really finding that it's super empty now. Super, not just like physically it's empty, yes, but like it's also just emotionally empty.
Yeah.
Cares really about these material things in some way.
That's so true. Yeah. I definitely believe that too. And what else would I wanted to see? So also in this chart, Rahu is in the seventh house, and the seventh house in the Vedic is other countries. So, or foreign countries. And that shows me also a deterioration of relations with foreign countries. And we already have that with, Russia and some others, but also the relations kind of are chaotic. And so whenever you get a Venus-Mars conjunction, that usually means violence, but not always. There has to be some other elements in there too, but the third house is a house of athleticism, and aggression, so I see more of that. I did see that we invaded, or we sent some troops to Somalia. I don't really know what's happening. I didn't really pay attention that much to that, but it does show, some more military conflicts cropping up before the next Lunar New Year.